of the February Thursday Nighter, Chess Castle, Minnesota. Pleased to be joined by National Master Dr. Oke here. Welcome.
Hey everybody.
So we're going to be going through these over-the-board games going on at the castle. And yeah, we'll get right into the games.
All right, let's get it started. So we have interesting and powerful matchups going on in the open section, and I guess we'll start from top board, where we have some master versus master violence going on between Kyler Weatherspoon and Jordan Tim. Starts off with e4, and now we have a Petrov, which it seems like Jordan is a lot more flexible in his openings as black, where he was playing St. George and Polish for a bit, and now he's playing Petrov.
Yeah,
Kyler goes for the
I like this knight c3 line. I play that as well, and I saw Kyler also.
Oh, you do.
Yeah, Kyler
So
played this against Dane. I mean, I don't know it very well, but Kyler also played this against Dane at Catfish Days, I believe. So this is his main weapon.
Okay. So yeah, so far it looks like a normal type of position. I assume White is going to go for maybe Queen D2 and Queenside castling. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I believe so. A lot of times they can play H3, G4.
This is an interesting position. From White's point of view, it seems as if his focus is develop all the pieces, take control of the central files, and Black is maybe slightly behind in development, but White's pieces aren't aggressively placed. They're well placed, but they're not aggressively placed at the moment.
Yeah, that's nice. He's getting the King B1 in. That pretty much is a must play once you Queenside Castle, so he's being patient with it. It's also kind of brave to play a system like this because anytime I think White Queenside Castles, they're kind of turning the game into 3 results, which there's definitely nothing wrong with playing fighting chess, but you're throwing away your chance to just play for 2 results where you're trying to suppress all possible counterplay of your opponent. And yeah, you get that king on the queen side, at some point some lines are going to probably open over there and Black's going to get some winning chances potentially. So you'll probably get your winning chances on the king side though, and it's going to be a fighting game. So
cool. That's a important summary of the plans, because that'll help guide our understanding of what they're coming up with here. Because after c4 and bishop f1, so Black has succeeded in getting the bishop from staring at his h7 square and the king side in general, but he's also created a nice hole on d4 that maybe White might be able to place a piece on or use it to pivot to other places. So then Queen a5.
the d4 square does look pretty nice because both knight and bishop can use it. Plus, if the bishop uses it, then you're opening your rook c file. So just kind of and d5 is going to be backwards potentially. Not that this is probably going to an end game based on, but you never know what can happen.
Exactly, and if you have the opportunity, I mean that pawn could be a target later on. That said, White's pieces seem a little bit boxed in, and I was wondering what he has intended after knight e4 from Black. Obviously can't play knight e4 right away because the pawn will hang, but let's see. So Kyler plays knight d4, which improves the position of the knight, but also means knight e4 is possible. Maybe part of the idea is prophylaxis against b5, because if b5, then taking one of the bishops off the board might be to white's benefit, because that
Makes
bishop
sense.
on e7 could become a menace to society on the queen side, or facing white's king, yeah? And then here. So,
Yeah, to my knowledge, you really can't tolerate a knight like that for very long. So I think white needs to come up with a plan to make sure f3 can work. Because yeah, you can't just leave the knight sit there.
oh, he plays f3 right away.
Yep. Oh, and okay, wow. Get some fireworks.
Oh my. Oh, this is. Oh, he gets his piece back too.
Yeah. He's gonna have to play knight b3, right?
So what prevented queen b6 from working? Oh, queen b6 and knight b3, and there's a counter.
Ah, yes.
I don't know if it's working though. So let's see. Queen b6, queen b5.
Yeah, now you can't even take the knight.
Oh, you can't. You still can't take the knight. So this is actually a clever defense. Now, what is rook d8 doing? Maybe planning to go rook here and rook here.
I guess that makes sense.
So he plays knight b3 anyway. Excuse me. Might as well just give up the piece right away and get on with it.
I'm not sure about that, but maybe that's necessary.
Well, it actually sort of simplifies. I think it sort of simplifies the position from white's point of view, because black's attacking chances aren't the greatest, and he might be able to simplify down to a position where this becomes a dominant feature. In general, with these IQP type positions, white should be happy with exchanging off all of the minors and bring it down to majors, because the majors usually think they have more to give society than babysitting pawns. So then once it creates that one weakness, then white might be able to maneuver again, might be able to create another weakness and have two weaknesses to maneuver against without having to worry about meddling bishops. So, well, what do I know? I thought he was going to play bishop d3 here to exchange off that pair of bishops along those lines. Unless there's something, let's see, maybe there's something tactical we're missing here after bishop d3.
Yeah, that definitely seems a lot more prudent to me.
Yeah, I think I can't find any immediate refutation of that. But he decides to go for king a1, and maybe the idea is he wants to leave the bishop on f5 and later gain tempi on it with g4 and h4 and h5, both pushing the bishop back and forwarding his own attack. That might be one of his thoughts.
Yeah.
So he plays bishop d4, queen c7. Oh, and he plays bishop d3 anyway. So now that makes king h1 seem a bit more suspect, because the king is going to have to take an extra move to get back closer to the center for the endgame. Then again, maybe it's not that critical, but I don't know. It seems as if black is getting a little bit of counterplay. All right, so this is where we are currently. Oops.
So
What's your assessment?
go back just a second before when you play queen f2. I guess a7 was poison, or
So
yeah, here I guess you could
right here,
if you took on a7. Yeah, I guess you're just asking for your king to get slaughtered too. Plus, yeah, your bishop gets trapped. Just making sure.
yeah, and there's also, yeah, and I think there's also queen here.
That looks pretty
And
dangerous.
yeah, that looks kind of dangerous. With queen c3 being a threat, queen b2 being a threat, bishop b2 being a threat. I mean, I think the current laws of chess suggest that if white were to play something like this, then you're compelled to checkmate with the weaker piece. Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah, it seems as if queen f2 doubly attacking a7 as well as keeping the enemy queen out of c2 seems like the more prudent choice. And was it one of their recent matches where Jordan was trying some attack against Kyler's position and sacked a piece, and Kyler had this nice defensive maneuver that we thought maybe Jordan had missed?
Yeah, he played like bishop f5 or something.
Yes.
Yeah, I looked at that. I remember I looked at that later though, and there was like 5 winning moves. So
It was like, what?
there was like 5 winning moves.
Oh, okay.
So that was
For
just
Jordan?
no for Kyler. So that was
For
nice.
Kyler, yes.
It was a nice defensive win, but it wasn't like the only move.
He wasn't the only one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's also why I had a little bit of pause when he just played knight b3 here because yeah, I think both Jordan and Dane are prone to just sacking pieces speculatively. So, you know, want to try to keep those things if you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also so. I guess if you go with the approach that feels consistent with how you like to play chess. So some folks like to play on the razor's edge and will accept every gambit pawn tossed at them in the opening, hoping to prove they can they can eat it without suffering indigestion. While others would say, nope, I don't want to have any part of that because I want to have a calm life and I'm going to find a way to decline the gambit while still maintaining a position I can understand.
Well,
And I think from a practical standpoint, Kyler probably felt, well, just give him back the piece. You'll have a stable position and you can go from there, might have been his thinking. I can't fault him, although I know that the pure calculators out there will probably accuse him of being lazy for not yeah.
who knows if there's even anything was there? I'm of kind of halfway of each of those mentalities because I never want to grab a pawn, and I'm happy to sack a pawn for activity, but a piece is a piece. So compared, so I'm much more willing to accept a piece sacrifice than
Yes.
accept a pawn sacrifice. But
Yeah, I mean, if you can see clearly to the end, then it makes a lot of sense. And I don't know, maybe we'll look. Maybe if you have time later, we might look back at that specific position to see if there was um, a decent way to keep the extra material. And as we are right now, it seems as if a familiar situation has arisen, time-wise, where Kyler has 6 minutes base time left to Jordan's an hour and 11 minutes. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I guess with this
But
kind of I'm just thinking about playing Queen E5 myself.
yes, that's what I was looking at too.
Because that seems like it's close to forcing a queen trade, I guess, or Queen F8, and you know,
And if he has to play Queen F8, then he has other issues to deal with, right? No attack, and White can start increasing the pressure on D5 and maybe push other kingside pawns forward and basically grab the initiative. So maybe something like Queen A5, Queen E5, sorry, Queen F8. Maybe H. Oh, I guess we need to keep in mind that Rook E7 might be coming at some point. But okay. Maybe we try with this. If he plays Rook E7, we capture, and then Rook here, and C4, and we got most things covered. Maybe. Oh, he plays Rook E1 instead, keeping control of the position, which also makes sense. Okay, well, we'll come back to this in a bit. Let's get to the other games. On board 2, we have Master to B, Dane Zagar playing the white pieces against Eddie Wasserman. And it started off as an exchange Slav variation, which is, from Dane's standpoint, a very familiar position. It's probably, I guess besides Sean Nagel, probably the most frequent person to be playing the white side of this position in Minnesota. And Rook C1 is a bit of a finesse against A6. And now Queen B3, which is a move that Black always has to keep under consideration when defending this position, especially in lines where Black brings his bishop out to either F5 or G4 and then plays E6, because now the bishop can't contribute to the defense of the B pawn. So here, Black has to be careful about unnecessary B5 moves, because White might be able to counterattack with A4 or sometimes even sack against the pawn. So, for example, maybe here, I don't know if this actually works right now, but knight takes B5 and here sets up a situation where White already has a very strong initiative. So Eddie defends laterally with Queen D7, and it seems like they're getting on with their development. And so here, the Dane's completed his minor piece development and decides to put more pressure on Eddie's queen side, and right away is threatening knight b6. So Eddie responds with his counter threat of knight a5. Queen b6 happens, attacking the knight on a5, but also maintaining the tension on the c file, which is why black shouldn't entertain that move because he loses this right away. So Eddie responds with a counterattack of his own with bishop d8. And I suppose this is akin to the poker idea of raising the ante with knight e5. It's like the position isn't complex enough. Let's add more tension to it. So now, how many pieces are attacked? How many pieces are defended? So the knight on a4 is attacked. The queen on b6 is attacked. The queen on d7 is attacked. The rook on c8 is attacked. Oh, and the knight on a5 is attacked. I should remember. So in this position, Eddie plays rook takes rook. And it seems that actually resolves things in his favor. And I guess Dane's time consumption suggests he wasn't expecting that, because if you notice at this moment, he has spent 15 minutes of his base time. And I guess that move took above 45 minutes for him to come out with this.
What's so wrong with rook takes rook?
Huh?
What's so wrong with rook takes rook?
So rook takes rook might have the disadvantage of this.
And you
capturing,
queen, right?
And then knight takes queen, and then knight takes knight, protecting the bishop. And now, say he plays knight takes here, and knight takes here, and maybe he goes, so he can't come into this square yet. So at least he goes here to try and put the shish kebab, the knights, and then black plays knight here. So the knights are protecting each other. And if white tries b3 to nudge this guy away so he can take here, then black gains a tempo with there. In fact, I guess black could also gain a tempo with this, although that seems like a very dangerous square to put the knight, but maybe it's working. No, I don't like this, because maybe white plays here, and after here, then here. Oh, I suppose you could just play this now, and it should be fine. So, and also king d7 might work as well, because if pawn takes pawn, king takes bishop, and we have a similar situation to the other line. If rook goes here, then maybe we have king c7. Yeah, king c7 probably is working. And just in time. Actually, you know what? This whole line is stupid, because rook b1 can't happen. Rook b1 will be a question mark, right? Yeah.
Makes sense.
So in this position, after king d6, I think white doesn't have enough compensation for the piece. So that's probably I think this might have been one of the lines that Dane was investigating during that long think. And so decides to go with knight takes d7 instead. But then that allows rook takes.
Yeah, I feel like this can't work because you're getting rook takes rook check. So this for drop material.
let's see though. In this position, so 1, 2, 3, 4 against 1, 2, 3. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Knight DB6. So his exchange. So that's the exchange down, correct? What if he played knight takes check? Oh, that's still an exchange down, right? After this and this.
Yeah, I think he's just going to be an exchange down.
Yeah.
I don't
Ouch.
know.
So it now comes down to, and their time situations aren't dissimilar. So Dane doesn't have a huge time advantage. The question now becomes, can Eddie mobilize his forces quickly enough, get his rook into the game in a way that it is effective? I might be partial to knight d7 here. I suppose 0-0 is simple as well. Maybe that's actually even better. Just it dawned on me that black can still legally castle and keep away from those bishops. I don't know. What would you play in this position as black?
Yeah, I mean, can you think about king e7 as well, I guess? But
True, that's also valid and maybe even better, keeping the king in the center for the endgame. So yeah, it seems as if Dane might have his work cut out for him, but he's one of the maybe the best swindler at the chess castle. So this result is still very much in doubt. I think all three results are possible. So let's see what's going on between Nate Hoover and Noah Stewart.
yeah, I feel like what's going on in that game with Dane is probably one of the best ways to beat Dane in general, is just call his bluffs.
Aha.
In my, but yeah, because I
Yeah.
think he's definitely just plays speculative attacking chess fairly often. So the way you have to punish that is just accept that material and then win the end game.
And then do the Missouri, show me. And, it's, I guess it's dangerous against someone like Eddie, who does not rely on much intuition. He's like concrete calculating all the way. And so he's probably going to go through every single possibility, which is one of the reasons why he always gets into time issues, because he's calculating on every move. And so if there's a fault, if there's a fly in the ointment, he'll probably notice it and take advantage of it. But as I said, Dane is also very well accomplished at swindling. So who knows what's going to happen in that game? We'll see. Here we have Nate playing this early fianchetto, which is often used as a move order into the Catalan. And now we're actually, I believe, transposed into a version of the Queen's Indian defense. So I guess some of these moves need some comment. So it's actually an interesting fight here that they're waging. Almost everything seems to be centered on the center. So every minor piece in one way or the other is influencing the center. And at the moment, the pawn on d5 is under pressure because it's attacked 1, 2, 3 times, defended 1, 2, 3 times, well, 4 times, but the immediate problem is white could play bishop takes f6, which would either force the queen to capture on f6, reducing the number of defenders of d5, or allow for his pawns to be doubled, whereupon his king's home is wrecked. So let's see how Noah tries to solve that. And he plays h6.
Just provoking the threat.
Huh? Yeah, that seems very bold. So bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, and maybe he didn't notice, or maybe he did actually. This is going to be some more interesting play. So pawn takes pawn. I guess I'll go step by step on this tactical sequence. So at the moment, the bishop and queen are attacking the knight. And so white solves that problem and potentially gains material by playing pawn takes pawn, allowing the queen to join in the defense of the knight, and also hoping to keep this morsel extra. So then black plays rook d8, which is pitting this pawn against this knight, so that if black were to play pawn takes pawn, for example, if white were to play pawn takes pawn, then this would be exposed. However, there's tension down here that needs to be calculated as well. Black decides, yeah.
Also seeing, queen takes f2 ideas if knight d4 ever moved. I was looking at
exactly.
b5. I was looking at b5, trying to deflect the queen from knight d4.
So instead of rook d8?
Yeah, it doesn't work, I don't think. But if b5, queen takes, then you can play bishop takes. I guess you can play. I guess your bishop b7 is hanging anyways, so it's not going to work. Queen takes b5, bishop takes d4, queen takes b7. But maybe there's f2's threats. I think that's king's still safe anyways. But in any case, knight c could take b5.
Yeah.
So it's not going to work anyways. But I was just thinking, and then it looks like that's kind of superficial pressure anyways, because the king's going to be safe on h1, even if you somehow do get queen takes f2 in.
Yeah. Yeah, it just so happens that white's pieces are positioned well enough to deal with black's tactics at the moment. And I like this move, knight e4, dealing with at least one of the problems in the position, which is taking this guy off the board, potentially. But also potentially creating a tactic based on maybe a later discovery of this knight and opening up this diagonal. So we'll see how that works out. Queen e5 is played. Knight takes.
He's just taking the bishop immediately.
Huh?
He's just taking the bishop
he decided
immediately
to
instead of going for the tactics you mentioned.
Yes.
I guess you'd have to play d takes e6, and then your knight d4 is hanging anyways, so it's not really going to work.
Exactly. And so, I guess at this moment, Nate probably discovered that he couldn't keep everything and sort of desperados his knight to try and get the best deal. Both his b pawn and e pawn are hanging, but Noah's development isn't great, and so maybe black doesn't have time to enjoy either pawn.
Yeah, it's a bit sad allowing knight b8 to trade itself off by having never moved. but that's going to be a powerful pawn on c6. I feel like, so I can see why he wants to do that.
Yeah, actually, this knight c6 is very poisonous. It is. It is strong. So the knight's attacking the queen and the rook, and there are two ways to capture the knight, both of which leave an even more dangerous pawn on c6. And because of the Catalan bishop here, that pawn will already be threatening to go c7, attacking the rook sitting behind. So this is a difficult one. I don't know if it's even solvable.
Well, you can't play knight takes because the pawn, which was what you like to do positionally, because pawn takes threatens the bishop, and then you have c7 immediately.
Yeah.
But maybe you can
And
play
then
bishop.
here.
Maybe so. Bishop takes is all that's reasonable.
Oh, actually, sorry, I'm not analyzing as in depth. So after this, I think black has to play this intermezzo first.
Yeah.
And then here.
That's still going to trap the
but
rook,
the
though.
result is the same.
But it's
in fact, yeah.
So I guess you got to play bishop takes c6. So what did you have there then?
So you probably have to play bishop takes c6, yeah.
No, but I mean bishop takes knight instead of.
Okay.
Instead of knight takes.
As in the game.
Okay.
Yep. So then pawn takes, and now rook takes, and at least there's not the tempo against the bishops on b7, but you have to find a way to stop that pawn from moving to c7.
Yeah, I don't really see a good one.
I guess the only way is physically with queen c7. But now Nate increases the pressure with queen b5, threatening to go queen b7. And there's pretty much nothing Nate can do. Noah can do. I suppose if you tried something like this, then we have queen there. And if you tried something like this, then we could capture, rook check, win the knight, and the pawn is still alive and hoping to score a touchdown. So, hence, Noah decides to just give up the piece immediately and hope for the best. But this sort of position where black doesn't have any real counterplay and white's a piece up, National Master Hoover should be able to wrap this up nicely.
So black must have had some sort of opening problem because he never got his queen side developed.
Yes. Let's go back and try and do a Sherlock Holmes as to how we got to that situation. So here there might have been an argument to capture on c4 immediately, just to open up that diagonal for his own bishop. But bishop e7 is okay. And after knight c3, still consider it. But okay, 0-0 is okay. Except for now, I think this is known to be maybe slightly better for white after knight e5 or queen c4. Queen a4. And this might be the moment.
Oh,
maybe
yeah, he's playing c5 here before he develops. So he's saying,
yes.
White's saying, I've
he
got
needs
my
to consider
development mostly complete, and black's saying, I want to break down your center, but you need to maybe play knight d7 first, or...
Yes. I think that is where the development issue came, is playing c5 with the knight still on b8. And then intensifying the issue after rook d1 by opening the position before his pieces are ready. with CD4, which then allows white to achieve two things with one move: improve the position of the knight and open up the scope of the bishop. So it's like Black's development issues were kind of compounded, if I may borrow that term.
Yep. To take is a mistake. That's a that's a general rule in chess. It's obviously a huge dogma, but at the same time, yeah, because when you take an opponent's piece, they can when they recapture that piece as a free tempo with whatever piece they recaptured with. So it's like they basically
Yeah.
giving them a tempo for free, and so because of that, usually, unless you're getting material gains or positional gains that are identifiable, then you should just maintain the tension instead of release it. But that's just, I don't know the specifics of this position either. But
Well, I don't know the specifics of this position and like where we are right now, but I do know that, and I feel sympathy for Noah because I have difficulty resisting this same urge. So we get into this position. He's already opened up the center to some extent. He's activated his opponent's pieces, and there's that feel that you need to try and regain the initiative. And what I try to remind myself during games is don't start playing the middle game until you finish the opening. And so here, he's already moved the bishop to e7. He moves the bishop to c5, which causes two more problems. One, that's a move that maybe he could have used on the knight. But two, it now means that this bishop move is a pin, an effective pin, and putting even more pressure on Black's center. And I think at this point, it's already very difficult. And then h6 just allows the floodgates to open against him. So yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's just like, still just not even sensitive to his queen side. So I wonder, could we think, instead of h6, could we think about, what can we think about? I don't know. Can we even, can we think about knight d7 and just saying, okay, I'll drop d5, but I'm not going to get crushed.
Yeah, I think that might have been necessary. Although it's a very nasty position for Black, because he plays here. I don't know, maybe
you must have to.
Here, bishop here, and then the rook moves somewhere, and then maybe he's losing another pawn. It's just a very unpleasant position. Let's see if we try something like this.
You can't wing it against these Catalan type setups. They just have too much inertia.
Yeah, the activity becomes almost demonic. Actually, this is even. Yeah, I suppose this works.
Well, you can see why all those Catalan mains get addicted to it, because when it works, it feels like your opponent just has nothing they can do.
And it just feels so natural, like you're not having to do anything. You're not having to push the river. Things are just flowing. And so, yeah, so once, I think at this point, it's already very critical. But yeah, probably just dropping the pawn while getting his knight developed may have been the way to go. At least better than losing another tempo with h6 to force White to do what he wanted to do anyway. So, so here we are. I think this is the position. Okay, and so we'll come back to this later, but I don't think this one is in doubt. The result of this one, and now we have we have a result on board 4. We've got Torfey playing against Robert Donahue, and
e4. He's
Yeah.
straying from his f4 roots.
Yep.
And
Vienna.
Robert looks like he was looking almost like a normal position for a second.
For a brief second.
Yeah.
So this is interesting, in a way.
I
So what is
mean,
he getting for his pawn?
well, first of all, I feel like bishop takes g1 was ridiculous. Personally, uh,
Yeah, the
it's like you're giving away your nice developed bishop for a totally undeveloped knight. Bishops are better than knights in general, so it just really makes no sense. You spend 2 moves with the black pieces who are they're already a tempo down, giving your bishop for their knight. So it's like, of course, white's going to be way ahead in development now and probably take over just from
Mhm.
that alone. Same concept applies here. To take his mistake, you're I don't know. You're not. I guess rook g1 is not the most powerful development possible that you're getting. That's the move you got for free. But what you are getting for free is your knight literally never moved. So and they spent 2 tempos playing bishop c5 and bishop takes g1. So
And I'd actually counter that rook g1 is actually beneficial for white, because if white understands that they're going to be castling queenside and that black is probably going to have to castle kingside, well, guess who's right behind the g4, the g pawn? You know? So it's like black lost tempi, gave up the bishop pair, and developed white's rook for him. It's like a multitude of advantages in the one move, and then gives up the pawn on d5 in a way that opens up the king even more while he's behind in development. So I suppose this was his idea, but it's pretty easy to parry. Um, Plays rook there,
I like that because
not threatening c7 and threatening f7. Yep,
yeah, getting some pressure on f7.
yep. And so castles happens,
And cold blooded, just
and
leaving the discovery open.
yep, leaving discovery open, making room for the queen, and making room for castling, and reminding Robert that he has many, many issues to solve, many questions to solve here. And oh, okay, so he gets an exchange back.
Oh, I feel like that just had
All right, so the position.
that had to just be a blunder. What do we have?
Yeah,
What do we
yeah, I
have
think that
that's
was a
better than
simple
queen?
blunder.
What do we have better than queenside castles?
H3 comes to mind for one, because there's really no hurry to castle, and H3 will support G4 and H4 and H5, and I think H3 might have been my choice. But it turns out that the bishop pair might be worth the exchange anyway.
Well, just please tell me he's not going to play queen takes g2 here. Come on. Okay.
Well, he's tempting him, and he took the
Yep.
temptation.
Okay. Yep. Come on.
Uh-oh. All right.
He wanted that g file. What are you doing, Robert?
Oh, dear. Ah, Torfy. Torfy's being mean. So he wins a pawn. So now, and he's attacking a7 and threatening maybe to go bishop d4. Um, I don't know if knight f5 is working for Robert here. I don't know. It might be doable. He chooses to play f5.
You could at least play queen h3 there.
Oh, and so White adds to his assets by creating a passed pawn. But then, okay, Black has a passed pawn on the f file as well, and so the position's
Well, Black has an exchange too,
still a
right?
bit messy. Huh?
Black's got an exchange too, so it's not like this is
Yes.
trivial for White. But okay, I'm not so sure about e6 because I'm losing my my bishop's scope on g8. But
Well, he does have the benefit that the knight really can't activate without giving up the rook. But let's go back. Yeah, so here was h3 was e6 the best approach. What would your preference be here?
I mean, at a certain point, can we just think about rook g3, rook takes f3?
Yeah, that seems valid.
That seems a bit unnecessary though, but yeah, I just don't really want to just even mess with f2.
Yeah, e6. I mean, I suppose e6 may also have the benefit of locking the queen out of the king side, potentially. Although Robert immediately plays queen d3. So the queen still doesn't have really great squares in this position. Okay, plays king c1. And I don't know if knight f5 was an unforced error or whether there's some tactic that we haven't noticed yet. But that gives back the exchange. And now the rook moves prevents queen e2, prevents knight e3, and supports e7. And, wait, there's more. Allows for bishop c2 potentially winning a piece, right? Because if, say, he plays something careless like this, then we have here the only square to protect the knight is here, and then there's rook e5, and then this guy is gone. So instead, Robert runs back with his knight and tries to blockade the pawn. Bishop c2 happens anyway, and a3. So we're in a situation where it's a simple pawn up, but the f3 pawn still hasn't been corralled and can be a source of counterplay for Black if White isn't careful. Black decides to defend the pride and joy of their position.
Yeah, it's just kind of begging for rook e5.
Yep, that seems a little bit careless, that one. And yeah, now the pawn has been captured. There's now 2 pawns up, and White still has all the previous advantages of his position. So I think at this point, it'll be very difficult to survive, but with Robert, there's always a puncher's chance. So he's going to try to set up some counterplay against White's kingside. and Torfi is doing his best to prevent any accidents. Yikes. I suppose there's knight h4, and then rook in, queen e1. Oh, bishop e4.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm also just tempted to play queen d2 there. Or queen e2? Is that a blunder?
Queen e2?
Yes. I guess knight takes bishop. Okay, yeah.
Which is still winning for white. And then with bishop e4, he's now completely dominating the knight and attacking the pawn on h7. Yeah, the end is nigh. So if white is hasty and tries to score using that, then black can respond with this. Position is still much better for black, but he lives to fight at least another day or another move or three. So instead he plays queen d6 to prevent that, and white plays queen d4, threatening checkmate on g7. Black responds with queen h6, which defends g7 and attacks the bishop on h7. But now rook f8 is happening. Yep. And it's all over.
Queen's a queen.
Yep. And in this case, it's going to be queen and rook, because after king h7, rook takes rook, and then pawn promotes. So, all right, let's see. Let me see.
One small thing I've heard related to these is, if the queen is going to remain on the board at the end of the variation, it's almost always going to be a win for the promoting side. Like, you have to at least be able to give a knight or a rook up for the promoting queen. And that's why connected passers are especially ultra powerful, because it's pretty likely if you push them together, one or the other queen is going to remain on the board at the end of the variation, versus if it's just a single pawn that's pretty deep, a lot of times it's not going to be a queen. It's worth a knight or it's worth a rook, because they're going to be able to sack a knight or a rook for it. But
yes,
couldn't do that in this case.
Well, so, let's see. I noticed there's a result on one of the top boards, but maybe we'll take a look at these other games first and then go back there. So we have Jacob Pikus versus Norman Myron, and starts off with an English. Jacob likes his flank openings. And so we have, I guess you could call it a ready closed at the moment. And now black is setting up a semi-Slav structure.
See, Norm being much more practical with his setup against the Catalan. Just get that pawn chain built. You're not needing to deal with bishop g2 tactics the whole game then, with a loose bishop on b7. Although I guess maybe I spoke too soon. We'll see here. But
well, I think he might be looking to get bishop a6 and feels he wants to gain some space with a5 before doing that, or
yeah, this is just my preference in general too. Just set up c6 d5 against bishop g2. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to get c5 in one move against Catalan setups, just because it's just too dangerous. Okay, this is the rook elevator.
Yeah, I don't know. This looks like it could be.
It's like extra tall rook lift, not just rank 3, rank 4. It's like high rise.
Yes. White the hopefully it doesn't get too spicy for the rook out there.
Yeah, it feels active, but also vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah, Norm is understanding that, pointing a bishop at it.
And Jacob is looking at maybe bishop takes h6 at some point.
Yeah, because look, we got
And Norman counters in the
almost
center.
like
Yeah.
you got rook f4, but you could think about g5. The rook is already close to running out of squares. It really can't get back.
Fortunately for Jacob, bishop b7 entices the queen away.
He's going for it.
Okay, now the fun begins. So let's see what's happening here.
Well, we do have, he does have rook h4 and knight e5, two very well placed attacking pieces. So, and
So he probably has enough for his piece sack. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only seeing the knight defending, so we got two majors and a minor against one minor. Seems like it's probably going to be good.
What about this though?
Yep, it's nice active defense. I like that.
I mean, I suppose he could probably. Well, it's probably not in his best interest to allow the queens to be exchanged.
Yeah.
Although I guess we should look at it just to be sure. But it doesn't seem as if he's getting enough for his piece. So then, maybe queen d2.
Yep. Now maybe knight
h7. And now we can consider knight h7. Yeah.
We're starting to consolidate. Plus, we're defending queen g5.
Yep. And threatening bishop g5.
And now, bishop e7 is starting to get into the defense. The queen's in the defense. Now it's like 3 defenders on 2 attackers.
So maybe the sack isn't working, or maybe we're forcing whites to play bad moves. Let's see. Maybe after. Yeah. So if pawn takes bishop, what else can?
I feel like the sack would be more likely to work if, say, the queen was on a7.
Or,
the queen was more sidelined. Because, if the queen can just get right back into play with queen e4, queen e5, or e4, sorry.
Maybe queen d2. Let's not allow the queen to get into e4.
Yeah, now it's threatening queen takes h6. Which then you'll be threatening mates. That looks pretty good.
But maybe we have knight e4.
Okay.
But maybe we have
rook g4.
Rook g4. Check.
You gotta pick h7,
crazy position. King h7. And
I'm not really seeing how white follows up here, but
yeah, I'm not sure either. I don't know if there is a follow-up. To be honest, it seems as if white doesn't have enough juice at the moment. So maybe bishop h6, maybe maybe Norman should have taken Jacob's bluff. Instead, he plays rook g5, which lets white get away with the advantages of the position and no disadvantages. He
Yeah,
wins a pawn. He opens up the H file.
I feel like that's a non-starter, to be honest. I feel like you got to take the piece unless you're seeing yourself getting mated, because if you think about it logically, Jacob could have also just played bishop takes g7 and continued with his same attack with an extra pawn and even less pawn cover, you know. So, you know, he chose to just be the clean pawn up or whatever. But if you're so
You're talking
afraid
about
of,
bishop takes
if
g7 here.
if you're so afraid of this attack, it's going to be even worse to get after bishop takes g7, you know. So
Well, bishop takes g7 looks okay. So let's take a look at that.
but maybe that's just superficial analysis as well.
Yeah, this might be.
Because yeah,
I think bishop g5 is fine
yeah.
because you're trying to open up the h7 square by taking the knight on f6. So Norman plays rook d4, bishop takes. Wait a second, what's going on here? Check. Wow. He's defending this. Ah! Wow, what a turnaround. Well, maybe it's not even a turnaround. Maybe the position was bad from the beginning. But all of a sudden, the game turned around. So after bishop takes, let's see how this happened. So after here, Norman is counterattacking in the center and making his and giving his king squares to run away with, and then bishop g5 happens. Okay, so Norman regains his pawn, but also is attacking the rook on h4, which kind of forces White's hand. And I think this factor is one that we weren't really considering because we're all focused on White's attack. But Norman probably had that at the back of his mind that, okay, so you get one check, and then what else do you have? And now he's forking these two. So after the checks, White has to figure out how he's going to deal with that, and maybe rook takes.
It seems like rook takes on the move, right?
Yeah, rook takes rook seems like the valid way to deal with it, and maybe even his position 97 is working,
Yeah,
just because
that seems like an exchange.
Yeah, maybe this is the way to go. But he played rook h5 to defend the knight, and that was the tempo Black needed to double. And now once he doubles, he's threatening this checkmate motif based on those squares being covered.
Yeah, so wait, so knight c7 though, is that just winning?
97 now?
No, before. Instead of rook h5.
Yeah, I think so. Here, 97 immediately.
Yeah, I guess you could, but I guess okay, but I guess you're rook saying okay. No, so rook takes rook, pawn takes rook, and then
rook takes rook. Yeah, rook takes, and then
I
don't know that it's winning an exchange because the king comes up.
Okay.
But it's not. It's safer, it seems to me, than what was played in the actual game. See anything? What does he play? Maybe he plays. I suppose king takes might be doable.
I'd play pawn takes for sure. But
yeah, pawn takes. And so White does have a passed H pawn, but Black has a passed D pawn, and that pawn might be able to protect it with its neighbor on the E file. So this position looks like it's still a fight.
I'd probably take Black here, but
yeah, it's still a fight. But yeah, for Black's position just seems a bit more functional in a way. You just more coordinated, better coordinated, I should say. Um, but that would be better than rook h5, which then allows this doubling. And after that, it seems like it's really hard, if at all possible, to solve this position for Jacob.
Yeah.
A desperado check.
That's his idea.
Well, his idea was to try to get checks, maybe rustle up a perpetual or something, but the threat to his king is just too strong, and there's no way to. What's even funny is that if you try the desperado here, then rook takes his mate anyway. So, yeah, that looked like a promising attack after bishop takes f6, but maybe Jacob just had to come back with bishop e3. The problem is there might have been some discovery with the knight. Where would it discover to, though? There doesn't seem to be a good discovery with the knight. So this might be a way to keep his pawn advantage. And then hopefully get his knight out of the way. But even after this, maybe we even consider rook d4 immediately. And then rook d1, so
I also feel like
this.
at a certain point, I feel like g takes h6 earlier would probably just been winning.
Yeah.
I feel like this whole plan Jacob had is kind of not how chess works. Going rook e4, rook h4, and then sack mate, like your Bobby Fischer or something. I mean, because if we think about when you go for a big attack, usually the way your opponent handles it is they strike back in the center, right? And so if you're going to go for an attack on the king, you better already have the center in your control, or else it better be locked, like a French or King's Indian. But does this center look closed and locked? No, it's like black has control over it, and then we see that what happens with variations like Queen e4, and it's just like, okay, they just move their pieces to the center squares that they control, and that ends up being very effective defense. So you can't just do these artificial attacks. You need to first control the center, and then you can potentially mate them on the king side as a next step. But if you just go for the king side attack without center control to pair with it, it's just not really, or without the center being locked, it's not going to work out usually.
And in fact, the final counterattack succeeded because Jacob completely abdicated control of the center after rook h5. Well, the center pawn on the center square on d4. By playing that was a tempo that black needed to get his counterattack to be decisive. And yeah, that was a harsh finish for Jacob. Nice comeback for Norman. Although, okay, we're not even sure whether bishop h6 was good, because, yeah, I think that Norm probably could have taken the bishop on h6 and survived.
Yeah, if I had to guess what the end, just guessing, if we put this game through an engine, I bet you it would say Norm was winning most of the game, and maybe there's like one cardiogram spike where Jacob had a winning move or something, because, yeah, you get positions like this. Sometimes you just had some forced win and some one variation, but 9 out of 10 variations with how this game was played out are going to favor black.
Yes, most likely.
So,
all right, well, let's take a look at. Let's see. I think we got Kevin Lamon and Eric de Galon, and we also have John Baker and Fern Snedeker, and then we'll go back up to the top boards. Let's go here. So Eric and Kevin, both solid competitors. We see like an English versus maybe a King's Indian, and now it's transposing to a regular fianchetto system versus the King's Indian.
So I'm already thinking. Well, it's interesting. I feel like both sides have gotten some gains.
Yep.
Black's got a little bit of a backwards pawn on d6, but also I feel like whenever you can get a piece to recapture on d4 like that, I mean, to take his mistake a little bit, but it's like white's not going to have a massive center now, no matter what.
Yeah, it's a give and take thing. It's a give and take thing. So he won't have the big center, but he also now has potentially more scope for his bishop on b2. And then the knight on d4 may contribute to an attack against the queen side, for example, say after b4, b5. Then again, white needs to understand that the knight could be floating somewhat, although at this point there's nothing besides the knight on c5 is the only thing that can really challenge that knight, which is what Kevin does the next move.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the less I kind of like d takes d4 or e takes d4, because yeah, exact same principle as we discussed earlier. If a capture is not benefiting your position significantly, it's probably better just to make a different move.
Yeah, this is a bit difficult now for Black, especially after bishop a3, because okay, now there's a double attack against the pawn. He could consider playing passively with rook d8, maybe consider bishop f8, but white's definitely in the driver's seat. Not necessarily winning, but definitely the one putting the pressure on. Instead he plays knight e4, and it looks like that must either be an attempt to gain activity, maybe he's hoping to swap the d pawn for the e pawn. But there's a tactical issue after these exchanges, in that the knight on c7 is hanging, and that gives white enough time to defend or deal with the attack against their pawn on e2. So after bishop takes d6, rook e8, Eric understands he doesn't need to run with his bishop. He can make his e-pawn safe. And now we have a situation where Black is a pawn down. Excuse me. Black is a pawn down, but he has a bishop pair. So some would say that white's advantage is only half a pawn, because the bishop pair constitutes a half pawn advantage on its own. But I don't know that I trust that as much. So anyway, so rook e8, which maybe Kevin needs to bring his bishop out. Although where does he bring his bishop out while leaving his rook safe? Huh?
Yeah, and he's worried about the discoveries.
Yeah. That's why he runs back with his rook. And then Eric doubles, and now bishop e6. And the bishop is immediately made uncomfortable with knight g5. Counterattacking against the rook. And now the position's a bit interesting, because yes, it's a pawn up, but they have bishops of opposite colors, so it's not going to be a trivial win.
Oh, so here's just my personal opinion. Instead of playing b5 here, I would just strongly consider just playing rook takes rook, because yeah, I definitely don't want an opposite color bishop ending, but what I do want is one set of rooks, because I feel like if you're this one principle I know is if you're the stronger side trying to win endgames, you usually want to trade one pair of rooks and only one pair of rooks, because you're going to need the other rook to convert your advantage, but two rooks allows the weaker side potential chances at attacking counterplay. So
Yes.
once you trade one pair of rooks, then it's all smooth sailing. Don't trade the second pair, because opposite color bishops would probably be a draw, but you should be able to win pawn up rook bishop versus rook bishop opposite color. And yeah, I probably wouldn't win it all the time myself, but I feel like the principal thing to do here is just trade rooks, play rook d7.
That would seem to be
King f8,
a good
I guess,
approach here.
but king f8, king e8, I guess I'll kick your rook out, but they're also sitting there thinking about it. So
I think exchanging off the rook and then bringing the other rook into the 7th rank at some moment seems like, so going along your line, rook takes, and then maybe now b5, intending to follow up with rook d7 and putting more pressure against black's queen side. With this,
black's just going to take anyways.
So now there's a pawn.
I guess
Another
what
pawn
could
is
he do?
going.
If it's not like he can move the rook away, or he'll still take b7. So
True.
It's not like that was really some strong must play. So I think the way he played is also totally fine.
So now this is an interesting question. How do you address the tension against b5? Well, according to Eric, you don't. At least not yet. You attack another target.
I like that move.
And
I didn't see that at first, but it makes a lot of sense. So yeah,
and then you attack another target.
Yep. Taking with tempo, why not?
Yep. And now bishop there. And now b6.
I like that too. You're just fixing his b7 weakness, so what's he gonna do?
So what happens after bishop a5? Which happened in the game, I suppose.
I guess we just play bishop b7 and bishop a6. No, don't go for opposite of bishop. Keep the rook on and it's easier.
Yeah,
it should still be winning, but
rook b7. I mean, it could still be winning the way he played it, but definitely,
I think that's
doing it this way has to be better.
Yeah, and you just see a bishop c4 to secure your a2 pawn, and so bishop take b6, bishop a6, rook a8, bishop c4. That should be smooth sailing to the win there.
Yep, because then you have two targets as white. You're targeting getting your pawn up the board, and you're targeting potential threats against black's king side, and your rook keeps his king from getting into the game, so it becomes more difficult for black to defend. And so this would have been better, I think, than exchanging off the rooks, because now the black king is safe to get into the game, and the pawn on a4 would have needed either the rook or white's king to allow it to step onto the dark squares, and now only the white king can assist in that regard. But okay, let's see how
this should still be winning. He's got two.
Yeah, I mean, there's two pawns,
two passers. The king, Yeah, this is
still winning, and maybe that was Eric's point, that he assessed the position as easily winning because of the fact that he would be able to develop connected passed pawns in a center as well as the pawn on A. Somehow I didn't count that it had gotten all the way up to 3 pawns up. This is because the pawns are just disappearing so quickly. But yeah, this is definitely.
Now you can just even play f6, right?
Yeah, this is definitely decisive advantage for white. Let's go. Oh, sorry. Let's take a look at John Baker playing black against Fern Snedeker. I do not believe I know Fern Snedeker. He's an e4 player, and they get into Caro-Kann. So black has a solid central position, but less space in the center. And white has the bishop pair. Don't know if that's going to be a major feature yet.
Yeah, it looks like
And white's
Team Scandy. Looks like Team Scandy to me.
Well, they're all cousins, right? They're all the same family between the Scandinavian, the Caro-Kann, and the Slav. They tend to have similar pawn structures coming out of those openings.
Well, it's just like, I'm sure it was theory, but I wouldn't like the idea. I don't like the idea of playing d takes e4 positionally.
You mean
Yeah, d takes e4
here? Okay.
Exactly. To take his mistake, I'm helping my opponent develop. And white already put his piece. White knight c3 doesn't belong usually because you can't play c3 or c4. So, I know this is probably Caro-Kann theory, but just it's not the opening I would like to pick.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not ready to play d takes e4, then you shouldn't be playing the Caro-Kann. I mean, the question to answer, well, one question to answer in this position is, okay, so how is white going to develop the light square bishop, or his pieces in general? I think in this position, it is possible to consider the alternative with g6. I think that's the Berganese.
That's kind of suspect too, though. Yeah, so I suppose.
At some point in time, it was respected. It was respected enough that people. So this would be back in the 90s, well, 80s and 90s, I think. It was respected enough that a number of players behind the white pieces would start off this way, so that if black played d takes e4 as usual, now we've transposed. But then if black played g6, then they could play c3. Because in this position and g6, the knight may be a bit misplaced. At least that's my understanding of how the theory at the time worked. But if black isn't going to play g6, then he has to wonder how he's going to get his pieces into the game. And if you stare at the position long enough, you notice that it's hard to do that at this moment. So what would be the candidate moves for black otherwise? If knight f6, then maybe e5 happens in a position that black isn't wanting to have that. If knight d7 happens, then the pawn on, so knight d7, this guy's hanging. If knight f6, then maybe there's e5 immediately. And we have to decide how we're going to deal with that. Are we going to go knight e4? Are we going to go knight d7? And then maybe there might be an e6 after that, for example. Maybe this is not good, but it's one of those things that black always has to consider in these kind of positions. And so I think it's based on that black hit conclusion that it was best to capture on e4. Now, for a sort of different viewpoint on this position, what's his name? He's an English grandmaster. And he's well known for his endgame play and stuff. And I'm spacing on his name at the moment. But he has his own theory on the value of the pawns. And he feels that the e4 pawn is more valuable than the d5 pawn. And so black taking d takes e4 is a transaction that benefits black slightly. So he takes it, and he actually thinks that positionally, white is making a mistake allowing his pawn be exchanged in this way.
Well, he must
But
be
it's not a majority opinion.
He must be a Scandi man too, then.
Probably.
That's-
I don't know. I can see his face. I can't remember his name right off the
Well,
top of my head. It comes to me. I'll mention him later. But yeah,
if this is totally mainline, maybe I should start considering knight c3 instead of e5 against Caro. Because
yeah. It was. This was the main line for a while, and then you don't see it as much because everybody's playing the advance or the exchange against the Caro these days. This sort of used to be the main thing, and I believe bishop e2 might not have been the main line, but I think this is where,
because me just looking at this, I mean, white has way more central space. They have a bishop pair. What's not to like about white's position? So.
Well, black understands that, and black usually wants to get, his idea is he's going to get a solid central position and then play towards either e5 or c5. That's black's general idea. And then with that, he takes away the space advantage, has a safe position, and hopefully, in the meantime, white has been trying to do some sort of attack and then takes advantage of any weaknesses left behind. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's, I think, the general theme. A4, for example, in this position, doesn't seem the best to me, I think. Allowing b4 to become weak like that has its disadvantages. And maybe in this position, he can consider bishop b4 instead of c5, but c5 is doable if you're okay with the idea of getting your pawns on the king side slightly mangled. And that would be a possibility after pawn takes pawn. And then this might be happening.
Yeah, I mean, I would strongly consider that personally because you're going to be left with opposite color bishops, which favor attacking. You still have queens on the board. Seems to be a nice transformation of the position into one where I could potentially get some huge attacking chances.
Yeah, I tend to agree. At least I'd be considering it strongly. But yeah, instead, Ferd played, continued developing, and allowed black to consolidate their position. Did I say consolidate the position? So John plays b6, allowing d5, and we have that same question mark on the king side. And actually, I think white is significantly better here.
Yeah, well, aren't you just dropping d5 immediately as well?
Yeah. And that's not just any kind of pawn. In fact, oh my, rook g, queen g6, right? You missed it. So always be wary of this sort of idea when your f pawn is pinned.
Yep, then you can take an h6 and then f6.
Or
You got to take an h6, play queen g6 check again, then take an f6.
Everything with tempo. Everything with tempo. Yeah, this would have been rather painful. In fact, yeah, I think after
You're not going
check
to
there,
really get a rook in, but
he's going to either be mated or have catastrophic material losses here. So queen g6 after bishop d. I don't know, that's what I thought he was setting up for. Actually, was after bishop d5, I was setting up for queen g6. But I think maybe he didn't see queen g6 and is now trying to mechanically bring the queen over to the king side. And okay, now we can talk about black having consolidated their position. And this is the moment where one person shoots out their hand and draw. So yeah, there's no progress to be made here. And they agree to draw. But yeah, that was a major miss on Fern's part. This queen g6 would have won the game almost on the spot. It's an important tactical motif, theme. I'm not sure what the word is there. To keep in mind when you have that f pawn pinned. So let's go back, see what happened in Tyler versus Jordan. It looks like it ended in a draw. How did they get here?
Be right back.
Okay, where did we leave this? Oh, we left here, right? He plays rook e7, rook e1, and then Jordan goes for the exchange, which is wise, I think. So remember I mentioned earlier that in these IQP positions, the person attacking the IQP would want to have major pieces left behind rather than minors, because it's often easier to prosecute that advantage. Okay, white still can try to pressure if he can get his king to d4. I'm not sure that, unless he's maybe hoping to get his pawn to b5. Oh. All of a sudden, I like white's chances. No, hold on a second. What are you doing? I think he has to. Okay, he wants to exchange his f pawn for the b pawn without losing his c pawn, but he then gives black the opportunity of a 3 versus 2 on the king side. So I don't know. I was automatically going to play either king here or pawn here. Those are the two moves I was considering. Basically, you need to get a passed pawn as quickly as possible, and you don't want black's king coming into b5. So that's what I would have probably considered first. f4 is an interesting attempt, but it allows the king to get in. And now that black's king is actually in some ways better placed than white's king, it seems like it'll be difficult for white not only to regain the advantage, but maybe even survive, because his pawns are dropping. potentially.
It seemed like something went wrong just to even get to the point where you allowed king takes a7, but
You mean here? Oh yeah, yeah.
no, just way earlier, like just allowing all this to happen.
Yes,
Like there must be
yes.
I can't imagine two GMs playing this way and being like, oh, he'll just take a7 and I'll be a draw. You know, like
No,
there's got to be a more dry way to have secured the draw for Kyler.
no. I think Jordan is probably close to lost at this point. This is not a drawing attempt. He's probably
Oh yeah, okay.
close to loss at this point.
I'm confusing the players, but
Yeah. And then just either a4 or king a6. In fact, yeah, I think those are probably the two I'd consider. Because that is just a pawn and there's no counterplay. Allowing the king to b5 was what got Jordan back in the game, and kudos to him to stay on the alert. And keep his pieces as active as possible. So this is instructive too. You don't go hunting for pawns. Position is what's important, and in endgames, generating your own passed pawn is worth giving up a pawn or two. So Jordan goes with the aggressive plan of getting a passed f pawn, and Kyler, equal to the task, gives up a pawn so he can improve his king's position. And by the way, hopefully get the pawn for free. Fortunately for Jordan, he's able to force his exchange. And now this position still looks a bit interesting.
well, to me, I mean, it looks pretty simple because the bishop's the wrong color, so you could always just sack your bishop for the f pawn. Put your king on
Bishop's wrong color where?
well, you could put your king on h1 and sack your bishop for the f pawn, and that would be a draw, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I'm looking at it from the point of view of white playing for win.
Got it.
So if white's playing for win here, does he have enough time? I don't think so. So I'm looking. I mean, obviously, Tyler didn't have enough time on the clock, which is probably even more important. But here, yeah,
Well,
he should even be thinking about.
how are you going to push that pawn to b6 ever? I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't push it. There's no winning chances to be gotten here. So that's where Kyler comes back, blockades that, and this should be an easy draw. And as you pointed out, if white's able to exchange off the f pawn, then he can give up his h pawn, and it's a draw because of these two not matching colors. Shall we dance? So that was actually a bit of a fun ending. I do think that going back here, f4 might have been the issue, and he spent some time on that. He spent 4 minutes on it. Yeah, either a4 or king a6 secures an advantage. I can't say for sure that it's a win, but it's definitely an advantage. And maybe, actually, no, it's winning if you play a4. Because worst case scenario, you'll be able to get king a6, a5, b5, and motor the pawn home, or at least make it where the bishop might have to consider sacking itself for the pawn. All right, unless you saw a hole in that analysis. We
nothing
still
here.
have.
Nothing here. But maybe
Okay.
looks like Kyle, that that knight c3 is Kyler's main weapon. So maybe Jordan and Dane should get together. Polish up their Petrov for specialized weapons against Kyler there. But yeah, Petrov is becoming quite the mainstay. We got Jordan and Dane playing it.
Yep.
So, and knight c3
Now
is
this
it's a nice
fight.
sharp line too. So get some
Yes.
lively games out of that.
Yeah. Not the draw fests of old. Yeah.
Yeah,
So this
it's
is.
not as dry as its reputation, in my opinion. I mean, it's dry at a professional level. I don't think at a club level is the driest.
Now Eddie made the mistake of listening to my comments and played 97. I think maybe King E7, as you mentioned, might have been a way to go. Okay, I don't know if it's a mistake. I guess just saying this, but after knight C8, the question now comes: what does Eddie play to maybe get his rook into play?
So what happened to his extra? Wasn't he up in exchange?
Yes, he was up in exchange, but his exchange means nothing if his rook is still in
Oh, I
the
got it.
parking
He
garage.
still is okay.
Yeah. So the knight d6 happens, king e7.
He's threatening e5.
Ah, threatening e5.
I wonder if we could have
But
thrown
then
in.
before, yeah.
I wonder if we could have thrown in g5 earlier instead of f6.
Oh, yeah, let's take a look at that. The idea of g5 would be.
I guess the bishop g3 then, or I guess maybe you could play bishop b5. But if he takes there, you
You can
take his
just
knight.
capture, no?
Or you take his knight. Oh, never mind. It's that my whole basis was completely
Yeah,
flawed.
that's why he played that, to try and separate him. And I don't know, this position is still not trivial. Um, okay, so we have a situation where
Now the rook's gonna start to get
black
active.
black is better here.
Yeah, for sure.
However, he still needs to calculate. He needs to get his rook in quickly, and meanwhile, Zagar is likely to fight like a tiger. And so I don't know about that. I was thinking knight here, protecting that pawn from capture, and then trying to calculate the ramifications of that move. But then here, and so you have to defend it, and then here, and follow up with rook here, and
Look at bishop g3 too. Look how pathetic that piece is.
yes, it's not a good piece. It's not a good piece at all, and activating it would be difficult. So yeah, I think knight d3, which also happens to keep Dane's king from getting in too quickly. Knight d3 would be better. I don't know. Maybe. Well, of course, Eddie's down to 5 minutes.
Yeah, see, I don't hate. Well, we just saw a result. That's unfortunate. But
Yeah.
I guess fortunate for Dane's master chances, but unfortunate for
Yes.
the Kaisa gods. Because
So
yeah,
did I mention?
this one arrives somewhere.
Is it possible I mentioned something about Zagar's swindling abilities?
Yeah, no. Guess we're about to see it on display.
Oh man, this is unreal. So, golly gee whiz. So he seems Eddie seems to have gotten things under control, but he has so little time that it's hard to. Yeah, so he was down. I should step back a bit. So when he plays this knight move back, it has just under 6 minutes. He spends about 4 minutes playing this, and I think he might have missed, or maybe he planned it all along and thought that Dane would have to exchange off. Dane, the canny veteran that he is, understands he needs to keep as many pieces on board as possible, and so doesn't allow the exchange, and plays f4, one way of getting that nasty-looking bishop to have more influence in the game. And then is forced to exchange off, but still has some bit of an initiative. So here, I don't know that f4 was necessary. I probably would have preferred
Just knight a5.
immediately attacking the knight. Oh, sorry, the c-pawn. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Just play. So after here, play knight here, attacking the c-pawn. And you need to create as much problem for white as you can before he's able to coordinate his pieces with bishop e1, king c2, etc. Actually, at this moment, I think the pawn's lost,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but he's playing on increment at this point. And so playing automatic moves. And even here, I think, I don't know whether this wouldn't have been better. You need to create a passed pawn as quickly as possible. And d4 achieves that. I don't think allowing this check is too dangerous. In fact, maybe just bring your king to a light square. And yeah, it's really hard for white to defend. But now by playing king e6, it gives white the opportunity to create a bit of a dark square blockade on d4. Yeah, Eddie did his best to give this away, I think. You capture here, let him take the pawn, but then you get this guy, and it's tough. And don't get me wrong, I'm rooting for Dane, but it's just, I'm looking at the anatomy of this swindle, because I want to improve my swindling ability as well, and just seeing how Dane is focusing on getting his pieces as active as possible, trying to, if not get the initiative, prevent white from keeping an initiative. And yeah, in this position, g6, Eddie's gone in to kind of prevent defense, it seems.
This still seems running to black to me.
Yeah, black is still, I would say black is for choice still, so I don't understand. I'm still having difficulty understanding how he won this. Wait a second. So Dane plays king b3. His clock says 000, with Eddie having 48 seconds. Eddie plays rook a8, and then it says white is victorious. Is there anyone on site who can give us more insight on what happened here?
Oh, we got Jordan in the chat. Did Dane
Okay.
Did Dane actually win this game, Jordan? Looks like there's maybe some sort of flagging issue.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I guess what I would expect the most at this point is Eddie flagged, but it's hard to imagine he lost his position.
Yeah, this would be a tough one. If he did lose this would be a tough one to stomach. Let's see. So, well, should we do a brief review of the last two games while waiting on an answer on that, or
Jordan doesn't know, so yeah, we don't have a good answer on that. We'll just have to check the standings, see what happened next week. But yeah, looks like Eddie just outplayed Dame in this game, but it's maybe headed towards hard to convert, but it shouldn't be losing.
no? It shouldn't be losing at all. We have a game against, well, between Aditya Kasharwani and Michael Heinisch, which starts with
Perk.
Pierce, and then quickly moves to, is it going towards a Philidor? Is it going towards a Pierce at 97?
The Lion.
Now, the Lion.
This is no go for
So,
me.
so now we have a Philidor. Now, at what point does the Philidor become a Lion? What is the
97.
So, okay, I'm sorry. Growing up, this position was supposed to be the improved Hanham. So have they just decided to erase Hanham from the history books?
Yeah, I don't. Well, it's Black's way of playing Phildor without allowing a queen trade, right? But
Okay.
it's just extra dubious because there's White has all these amazing options against it. It's like just the starting position. The eval is like plus +0.7, plus +0.8. So in my opinion,
Because I
yeah,
mean,
it's a contempt opening. It's only an opening
else
that's
is-
that's really viable if you're a much stronger player.
so in the old days, I guess it was understood that this was not good um, as an immediate move order, and then they figured this should be played first for concrete reasons, and then here, and then here. And so this, so um, I think this was the original Hanham, and then this was supposed to be the improved Hanham variation. So the Lion, so what you're saying is that the Lion, you're playing 97 immediately so as to avoid the Queen exchange. So
Yeah, I can give you guys.
okay,
I can give you a hack if you ever want to try to
I
play
think
it.
I get it now. So at a point in my misguided youth, I became enamored by this position um, as a way of getting into the Philidor through the um, Pierce move order, and actually enjoyed playing the black side of the Queen swap variation. Had a couple of decent games with it. So I guess this is a creature of modern times, because the most common way, I think, the most common way the Philidor shows up on the board these days is through a transposition and not the direct um, e4, e5, knight f3, d6. So,
Yeah,
okay.
Jordan.
So that's
Okay,
why this is.
well after 97, Jordan mentions G4, which is also what I play. It's a pretty so play 97 and G4. So G4 is pretty aesthetic because Black's the usual. Well, first of all, you're taking advantage of 97. They can't play bishop takes G4 anymore. So that's kind of aesthetic, and then you have an immediate threat of G5. And so
Mm-hmm,
if black plays E5, which is actually played in probably 30-40% of blitz games, because
mm-hmm,
the type of players who play Lion just want to autopilot all their moves, then
mm-hmm.
G5, this is already plus 1.5. so it's literally winning on the spot. And then if they are smart,
Where in the world is that knight going to?
yeah, it just has to go back to G8. So you can see why it's plus 1.5. And okay, yeah.
Hmm.
So Jordan's actually talking about the Shirov Gambit, but I think this is much stronger than the Shirov Gambit because this is just total one-sided play. And then if they play H6, then you play Bishop G2, H3, Knight E2.
Hmm.
Later you play
Yeah, and this is a
later you play
position I
Bishop
remember
E3,
playing too.
Bishop E3, Knight G3, Castles F4. It's just totally one-sided, and you have tons of space, and you try to keep
Hmm.
four minors on. What Jordan's actually referring to though is instead of G4 immediately, where there's another variation called the Shirov Gambit, but this is more of a
Where
true
there's
gambit
G4
where
here,
there's
right?
G4 here exactly.
Yeah.
And knight takes G4 is the main line here, and I don't know much past that, but this is more of a true gambit. So
Hmm.
and G4 without knight F3 included is more of a
Just a straight crush.
it's got an immediate
A
trap.
straight.
Well, it's got an immediate trap with G5, which is nice, but then it's also just
Hmm.
positional. It's just positional crush, space advantage, which I like better than gambiting myself. But
Yes. Well, if you get all the same advantages for free, I suppose, right? Um, no, this is okay. Now I've been educated on that. Um, let me see. So this is
and you
interesting
will
play
see the
by.
line a lot because it's just it's a lot of people's like blitz weapon. They don't want to show
Mhm.
their real openings. Like it's just a setup opening. They can play the same moves every game and it works out. Some
Ah,
it works out unless white is all booked up, and then it's like, oh man, this is actually not good.
no, the two strongest players I have to face in the Philidor don't go in through this move, or they usually go in through. But it is a sort of system thing too, where they're playing for they're both shunting out d6, c6, knight d7, bishop e7, castle, whatnot, queen c7. Um, now, does the black lion involve like an early g5 at some point for black, or is that just sort of variations?
I'm not sure. It doesn't not against my variation. A funny.
Okay.
I know Dane Zagar's got games in the Black Lion too, but I think he might be. He's playing more serious openings nowadays, so I don't think we'll see him playing it. But you might. You never know if he's really feeling spicy someday. He might bust it out again.
Cool.
But nothing against Michael either. It's just
Oh, this is getting pretty spicy on its own. Wow. So that was
and actually,
impressive.
the
Yeah.
fact that I've got my G4 line, Jordan's got his Shirov Gambit. This is I think the
Mhm.
core problem with openings like the perk is you give your opponents so many options that like because the eval is like slightly better for white everywhere, so then they're gonna just pick a pet line and they're probably gonna know their pet line better than uh, the antidote to it. So it's just like I don't like why would you want to just let your opponent play like anything they possibly want to, like have 50 options. It's just like
Well, if you like having variety in your game, I
yeah, I
suppose might be
suppose.
one reason.
Yeah, and I guess the same tokens like Nightdorf, I guess that's probably the same downside of Nightdorf, which is much more respected, is yeah, White's gonna have a million options that are all these different pet lines. But
So the thing is, like openings like the Night Orf and the Dragon tend to be practiced by folks I'll call true believers, right? So they believe in their system and they're ready to put in the work to know every single line of every single sideline. Um, and they're probably really disappointed when people decide to make all of their opening preparation a waste by playing bishop b5 at some moment. But there are a lot of people who just like that they just feel it's just winning and come at me, bro. What you gonna do? Right? I'm up for the challenge. And I don't know. It's a different philosophy in chess. I think it's valid. I suppose in some ways I'm a bit of a sitting duck myself, playing the French every time or most times. But the idea of playing I guess one of the ideas of playing the same sort of position all the time that might be beneficial is if you do play it, to paraphrase, you play it with brain, not just hand. Over time, you begin to understand it so well that you're confident playing against Magnus Carlsen, and maybe you might be able to snaggle a draw against a much stronger player just because you understand the positions that much better. But then, as you said, a lot of folks playing these might just be playing them as systems and not paying attention to nuances, etc.
Well, at least you know that. I guess when you're doing like the Najdorf and stuff, you kind of know that they're probably giving up. All the stuff that's going to surprise you is probably not. I guess the Najdorf, that's not true though. With the Najdorf, really, a lot of stuff that surprises you is strong. But yeah, I don't know. I'm over time. I'm trending more towards. I want to get into my positions, and I'm not going to play my opponent's positions. So I play Sveshnikov myself, and I guess that is similar, but it's definitely not as easy as people to just get into some total pet line of their own. But yeah, I
Wow.
don't know.
Do you see this? Sorry, I was
Yeah,
moving
I
along, and white unleashed a nice looking tactic here,
yep.
winning a pawn, or I guess winning the pawn back because he had lost the pawn earlier, and now he's won a pawn.
Yeah, this is somehow going to be a win for black. White's up a clean pawn right now.
He's up a pawn, and he's threatening another pawn, and he's also threatening a fork on e6.
Oh yeah, per our discussion earlier, this is kind of sadly why I'm not I really wanted to start playing Ruy Lopez, but I've realized it's just really not that practical because there's about 55 chapters of Tavia's, and then black always chooses these ultra sharp lines because they have a ton of options that are ultra sharp. So it's basically like swapping colors. So, usually white gets to memory test black, and black has to remember their line. But Ruy Lopez, usually black gets to memory test white, and white has to remember, how do I refute this again? So if you can memorize them all, great. Yeah, you're probably gonna collect a lot of easy miniatures, but it's just not how it usually goes in practice. They play 3F5, or they play open Ruy Lopez, or they go all in on Archangel, or they don't play, and they don't play the boring lines either. They don't really play Berlin. No, they pick some super sharp memory test. So yeah, it's more practical to administer memory tests than try to pass them, even though I guess trying to pass them is better for your long-term chess career. So
Yes. Although, is there still room in modern chess for understanding the opening rather than it just being a memory test?
well, but black does their best to try to avoid that, right? They know if they just get to some positional battle, it's not going to be like awesome for them. So,
Well, not necessarily. I think that it's still possible to play. Not. I'm not saying play a system opening. All those system openings are still valid. I don't know. I think one of the things that we learned, every world champion brought something different to the table, and one of the things that Magnus Carlsen brought, and not because he didn't know the openings, but he just understood that you don't have to have a theoretical or objective advantage in the position to win, right? So if Black understands they're going to get a small but manageable disadvantage, they might be just happy playing it that way, and they're not immediately lost. White still has to do work to prove that they're losing, right? So it's a different. It's there. The good thing about, I think one of the best things about chess is it lends itself well to a thing I learned from friends in the engineering world, that all models are wrong and some are useful, so that you can go your own way, find what works for you, and then if you're given a microphone, then you get to pontificate like me on a stream about what you think is the best way to go. But no, I think that the Roy Lopez is, yeah, there's lots of sharp lines, but I believe that there's a certain logic to a lot of the lines. Because if you think about it, a lot of the biggest bulk of the theory was born before computers. And so I think there's a lot of human logic in those lines. And if you can understand the logic behind the tactics, it might help in learning how to deal with 3F5 and stuff like that. Then again, I haven't looked at this stuff in forever, so I might be just talking complete nonsense. Now, I wanted to point out something in this game here that just got, because we were wondering how it was that White lost. And I think this move here, I don't know the objective scoring on this, but wowee. It's probably
So
not.
what's wrong with taking the rook?
Huh?
What's wrong with taking the
Well,
rook? I guess yeah.
let's find out, because
He's gonna call.
I just can't understand how this is working until you see this. And now the rook has to be given back.
Got it.
And Black has two connected passed pawns on the king side.
You at least can collect it. You can potentially collect h6, and then wait. Can you play rook f6? Rook takes h6, and then rook takes queen. So now you're not. You got knight b3 there if you really need it.
Yes. This would have been the way to go, I think.
Or maybe,
so then here.
Yeah, and maybe you didn't even need knight b3. Maybe you could have just played rook takes h6 immediately. And
No, I think this is probably because you can use your knight to help corral this guy, right? Unless you're saying instead of.
Yeah, I'm just saying here, maybe you could play rook takes h6 immediately, because if he can't really play king takes knight, because you play rook takes pawn. So.
Okay. Oh yeah, now you have.
Now you have an extra option of what? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Perfect.
Yeah, and now this is just completely winning. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, so I think what happened here is White panicked and didn't assess all their options. And we don't have the time situation, so we don't know how much time he used to consider this. But it's also, I think, a product of forgetting that defending a square from behind is often as effective or more effective than defending from the side. So he's thinking, okay, well, I play here, I'm still covering h1 and not visualizing that attacking it from behind is just as valid. And it just so happens that the pawn on g5 is falling soon afterwards in this line. So, but I still like Michael's.
So maybe, funny enough, maybe you can't play king c5. Maybe you need to move your king somewhere else.
Yeah. You can't. But I chose king c5 because it seems like the most obvious. You're at answering an attack with a counterattack. In fact, in that position, maybe even. Yeah. Anyway, anything other than c5 looks like it will lose. King c5 looks like it will lose trivially. So here, but it's still not over, right? Because it's still.
Yeah, but come on, knights are terrible defending edge pawns. So I could see why this is getting out of hand quick.
Yeah. Oh, wait a second. Does this slow things down? Maybe that holds things down. I mean, I think it's still probably a lot. No, I think this holds things actually.
Yeah.
Because now the pawn on h6 can't move forward, and you're holding the pawn on g3. So say he goes here.
That's pretty much the only move I'm seeing possible.
Huh?
Yeah, knight f2 is all I was seeing as possible. So.
Yes. So then maybe king e2.
Yeah.
And I don't know, king here. King, maybe king. Yeah, maybe king there first. Have the knight declare its intentions, and we'll probably be able to capture one of those two pawns.
g3 looks a little overextended, so maybe they kind of rush shoving that pawn.
Yeah. So this position might still be drawable. And again, I think Aditya is in panic mode because he didn't need to capture just yet. But it's easy to say when you aren't the one with the clock ticking.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very nice. Michael, a veteran, has seen this pattern before and understands that that knight and pawn construct is invincible. Now the question is...
Oh, and f3 even worse. But you got to at least try to trade one of those pawns off.
And now the pawns are all going to go bye-bye.
Okay, but I don't agree with Black's choice of giving up their passer, though. I think they should.
Yeah, I would.
I think they should.
I would just leave that there. Yeah, I would just leave that there and bring the king in.
Yeah, bring the king, especially, and this is why c3 is so bad looking to me. Is it just makes a clear path for the king to come in and take those pawns.
Yes. Yeah, I think king here, and even if white is able to exchange off those 3 pawns for the 1 pawn, then the king just slides over to the king side and eventually bodies his opposite into giving way for the pawn.
And I mean, what he played in the game is probably just a clear win as well. It's just, I can imagine some scenario where the pawn gets traded and then it's draw,
it just so happens that fortunately for Michael,
it's impossible if you keep your edge pawn. Like literally, you always can eventually just tempo them out.
Yeah, well, there are many roads to Rome, right?
Yeah, no, this is totally winning, so it's picking his straws.
And c'est fini. Nice. So he can choose which square he wants to be mated on.
That's funny.
Okay. That was a good one. So did we ever find out what happened to Dane's game? Oh, they changed the result.
Is it drawn?
Oh no, Dane
Oh,
lost.
Eddie won.
So the Eddie won. So the time was probably.
So Dane
I don't
must
know
have
if they corrected the times.
then Dane flagged or what?
Probably because in the original construct, it had Dane with 0 minutes and 0 seconds at some moment, right after he played King B3. So I don't know whether, in actuality, he lost. He got down to 0. Eddie made his move, and then noticed that Dane was out of time. Might have been what happened.
Well, this is a
Hmm.
more just result, unfortunately for Dane though.
Yeah, it's like just result, but I'm all for the swindle. I thought he was going to be able to pull one out.
Yeah,
So,
I
but
don't
Eddie,
have.
Eddie's a good kid.
I'm not really a fan of anybody. Yeah, I'm just I'm a fan of whoever plays the most principled chess for the day. So,
Understood.
and I think Eddie,
Understood.
Eddie is, exchange is a rook is better than a piece. So, but this feels like it'd be hard to convert. So he's kind of lucky you flagged.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, and this is one of the things that we all have to work on at some point. Understanding when material is more important, and also, um, so going back, I think one of the easier points is at this point here, where he tried to protect the G pawn with G6, and probably could have afforded to allow both of those to go, understanding that once he gets this in, it's pretty much all over. But again, with very little time, it's sometimes hard to assess this sort of thing. But yeah, well, that was an interesting set of games. I guess, is it tied at the top now?
Yeah, well, we're only 2 rounds in, so it must be. I don't know actually what the standings are, but
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it'll be topsy turvy before the month's over.
All right.
Yeah, I should get better about giving you guys all the standings, but I'm not too in tune with them myself, unfortunately. So,
No, actually, no. There might be a way to see it, right? So if we go here, um,
I mean, you can
oh, but doesn't.
you can kind of hover over their name, maybe. I don't know. I don't think there's a great
Yeah.
way.
So no, I can see
Yeah,
their scores. So
yep.
Eddie has 2 points. Um, Tyler and Jordan are tied for second
Eddie's
with one and a half
crushing
points.
it lately.
Crazy. And then in the open section, Eric Galon has 2 points. It says John Baker has 2.5. Did John play in more than one? Oh, you know what? Because they're editing some other stuff, I think. So this may not be completely accurate.
Yeah, I would never totally trust, especially for
Yeah.
standings. All you can really trust is the actual standings on the castle website, because
Okay.
the broadcast isn't really. It does, especially for the open section. It doesn't have all the games, So
Hmm. Okay. All right. Well,
I do
yeah,
like.
interesting games. I think.
I
Yeah.
do like. I do. I don't think we talked about it too much, but I do like that Jordan had the swindle chance here himself. Of if bishop takes bishop, he's going to get his own pass to e pawn. So you know,
Oh
not that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
not that Kyler would do that, but you know,
Yes. And this is another classic case where um, you don't initiate the exchange as
yeah.
white here.
To take is a mistake. Get that burned into your skull, and you will have a much better chess career. It's. I stole that from Igor Smirnov. He's GM with 500,000
Yes.
subscribers. So
Yes. He's a good teacher. I think
yeah,
I've seen one or two of his videos, and yeah. No, to take is a mistake. And I could bring a whole library full of examples from my own practice where I made that mistake, and I guess continue to make that mistake. But someday I'll learn. I guess when I fully grow up. Um, any let me see anything else. I guess the next round will probably be, well, Eddie's on 2 alone, I think. So maybe him versus Jordan next, or actually could play either Jordan or Kyler next week. So anyway, it's too early to worry about those things.
If we
You
get Eddie
get
versus
to the
Jordan,
board and you play.
I'm not sure those two have played each other. It might be, a unique game.
Mm-hmm.
No, just kidding. I think they played each other like a million times.
They played each other like a zillion times, at least on Mondays.
Yeah.
At least on Mondays, I would think, for the action quads.
But,
Any announcements?
But it's not all we're getting all sorts of new openings from Jordan, so it could be all new between them. No, nothing big for announcements for me. Anything for you?
Nope, nothing that comes to mind. I mean, we'll probably say it next week too, but most people on the stream probably know that in a fortnight, well, minus some days, the Minnesota Open will be happening. And well, when we get there, we'll get there. So
the tournament of the year. So
yeah.
all right. Well,
Yep.
I guess we'll sign off for today. But thank you guys. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And next week we'll have OK back here with Michael. So tune in next week, and we'll see what happens in round 3.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Bye.